Hello everyone, I am the Enforcer, and welcome to the breaking news. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and support us on Patreon, link in the description below. Today we have breaking news coming from around the world, as we have been able to hear that officially, as of today, the Russian Federation has begun its Zapad-2025 and larger West 2025 military exercises as of today, as armed forces are now conducting actual actions near to the area of the city of Grodno within northwestern Belarus, while at the same time we have been able to hear that the Russian Northern Fleet out of Murmansk has set sail, breaking out into the Norwegian Sea, incredibly close to where the USS Gerald R. Ford, under the command of 6th Fleet, was last seen. We've also been able to hear that NATO is already conducting its own response to these ongoing developments and escalated tensions, as we have been able to hear that NATO is now launching a naval exercise within the Baltic Sea comprised of 17 vessels from a multinational coalition of states within the NATO alliance, while we've also been able to hear that Lithuania's 1st Division has been mobilized and will be moving towards the area of the border near to their capital city of Vilnius to conduct military exercises of their own in the midst of the ongoing military exercise being conducted near Grodno. At the exact same time, Poland is continuing to move 40,000 men towards the area of the Kaliningrad and Belarusian borders near the Suwalki Gap as a part of Iron Defender 2025. We have also been able to hear simultaneously that NATO has now announced the brand new Operation Eastern Sentry, another multinational coalition as a part of the NATO alliance involved in protecting the airspace of eastern Poland, eastern Lithuania, and eastern Latvia, considering that there are significant airspace closures within all three of these countries, and also ensure that any future Russian drone incursions will be met with a strong NATO armed resistance, shooting the drones down directly once they enter NATO airspace. At the exact same time, we've also been able to hear that the Ukrainians are offering assistance to Poland and the greater NATO alliance as a whole in how to deal with drone attacks effectively and cheaply, and to also be able to try and create anti-drone defenses that are incredibly effective, but once again, cost-effective on top of that. Outside of that, we have been able to hear that the Danish are now getting direct threats from the Russian Federation for continuing to produce missile-grade fuels, solid propellants, for Ukrainian missiles such as the Flamingo and others. We have also been able to hear that Denmark, in a record-breaking arms deal, will be purchasing the Franco-Italian-produced SAM-T missile systems in comparison to those of the Patriots. We've also been able to confirm that the Ukrainian armed forces have conducted significant strikes at the port of Primorsk within the Leningrad Oblast of the Russian Federation, while at the same time, we've also been able to confirm that Ukrainian strikes on fuel facilities in Ivanovo has occurred, and we've also been able to hear that there was a possible strike near to the area of the Smolensk nuclear power plant, either by a Ukrainian drone that was shot down or directly targeted the plant. Outside of that, the United States is still conducting reconnaissance against Venezuela, and the United States president has stated that his patience with Putin has completely run out. And we've also been able to hear that the Ukrainians have encircled another several hundred Russian men, at least 100, within the area close to Shikove and Novoshikovye on the northern Pokrovsk front. In short, there is a lot of news to cover over just the past few hours, and we're going to be getting into as much detail as we can on all of it. Starting off, we have been able to hear that the Russian Federation's Zapad-2025 military exercises has now commenced within the area of western Belarus, specifically within northwestern Belarus. We can actually see footage already published by the Russian Ministry of Defense of this development, which we can see in this clip. Here we can see Russian BMP-2s moving through the training fields. These training fields are just north of the city of Grodno, and it appears that this is a part of an action conducted by a Russian mechanized brigade that was most likely brought from the Moscow military district. We can also see a T-72B3 and another BMP-2M. We can also see them conducting some rotary aviation wing actions as well with Ka-52s. Also, I would like y'all to note that from this video, we can clearly see that these are carrying a combat loadout. It appears that they're carrying S-8 unguided rockets, and on one pylon, they're actually carrying Vickers anti-tank guided missiles. When we see that helicopter flying over, we can see that, interestingly enough, the Russians have actually reserved a decent amount of their best forces for this exercise, and we can also see them showing off the fielding of tactical strategic bombers involved in the Zapad 2025 military exercise elsewhere. Meanwhile, around the area of Kaliningrad, we can also see here, and also in the Northern Fleet, naval exercises that are also jointly being conducted as a part of the Zapad. And we can see here in this clip, one of the Russian Slava-class cruisers of the Northern Fleet heading out from Murmansk. To give you all an idea of how large and how encompassing this military exercise currently is, this military exercise is being conducted in large form for their ground forces within the training fields seen here north of Grodno. The actual footage data we're seeing of the BMP-2Ms and the T-72B3s moving around those dirt tracks was actually taken here at this specific training field, which at its closest is only a half-mile away from the Lithuanian border. We also understand that some of the amphibious exercises that we saw were being conducted within the area of the Vistula Lagoon near to Baltisk and Kaliningrad, and finally, some of the last footage that we saw of the Slava-class cruisers is actually coming from the fjord, if you want to call it that, or generally the mouth of the entry to the Kola Bay, somewhere around this area just north of Murmansk, as those vessels were also heading out to sea. This generally gives us an idea that the Zapad-2025 military exercises, or as it is somewhat called, the West 2025 military exercises, are quite significant in scale and all-encompassing in terms of geographical area. We have already been able to see that NATO forces are making their own response to this ongoing situation, as we have been able to hear that NATO has announced Operation Eastern Sentry overnight, which according to the Supreme Allied Commander of Europe, General Grinkovich, and NATO's Secretary General Mark Rutte, they have stated that the operation is a response to recent violations of NATO airspace, including the Russian drone incursion into Poland. The multi-domain activity will commence in the coming days and will continue for an undisclosed amount of time, possibly indefinitely. Within the framework of this operation, Denmark will contribute 2 F-16s and an anti-air warfare frigate. France will also contribute 3 Rafale, which are already inside of Poland at the moment, and Germany will contribute 4 Eurofighters. In total, it appears that at least at the moment, Denmark, France, and Germany will be providing air squadrons each, at least in number at the moment, inside of Poland and also the Baltic states to be able to help bolster their air defense. It's not an incredibly large air defense mission. We're not speaking about large numbers of any of these air forces being involved, but nevertheless, it is a start, and it is a growing framework to forward operate these air forces within the Baltic states and Poland in mutual air defense and mutual defense of the entirety of the NATO alliance. The United Kingdom has expressed its willingness to support the operation, but we haven't been able to hear of any official involvement yet from the United Kingdom. Nevertheless, on the ground, we have also been able to see that the Polish and Lithuanians are making their own responses, as Lithuania has raised 17,000 men, specifically from the Lithuanian 1st Division, to respond to the ongoing situation and to conduct military exercises of their own near to the area of the Grodno exercise grounds. In particular, the Lithuanians have mobilized in its entirety the Lithuanian 1st Division, which generally is the only division in the Estonian Armed Forces currently, or the Lithuanian Land Forces, correction, and they also, on top of that, are all professionally trained and well equipped. This is actually something that is a bit of a shining example, or a major difference, from Lithuania and the rest of the Baltic states like Estonia and Latvia, in the fact that Lithuania actually has a full division element force, 3 brigades under their division, and all of them are professional full-time units. None of them are made up of reservists whatsoever. It's actually incredibly interesting to note that their exercises are happening around the Alytus city area, and south of that, within the fields just outside the Grodno training ground. This is Lithuania's direct response to the Zapad-2025 military exercises, and as far as their fighting abilities go, we understand that the 1st Division is an incredibly competent fighting division, especially that of the brigade, the Iron Wolf Brigade, that is under the command of the 1st Division. It is incredibly potent in terms of its firepower and offensive and defensive capabilities. We've also been able to see outside of that the Polish are also continuing to respond with further airspace closures, along with multiple other nations, including Latvia and Lithuania, within the area. We can see that large amounts of the airspace are closed, and from what we understand, Operation Eastern Sentry will be a part of ensuring that these airspaces remain closed, not only to civilian traffic within these countries, but to also shoot down any Russian incursions made within that airspace during the time of the exercise. On top of that, we were also able to see that the Polish border is still closed today, as we were able to see here that tank traps have been set up, and Polish vehicles helping to continue to construct defenses are still moving around the area. Specifically, this border checkpoint is the one at Terespol, which is around the area of the city of Brest. You can actually see this specific checkpoint right here. This is the actual building. I'll show you all that really quickly. That is the actual building that y'all just saw on film a moment ago, with the tank traps that have been set up near to the area and also further down inside of the checkpoint itself. This is in case if the Russians are to conduct an offensive. Most likely the bridge over the Bug River will be blown up, and then we will see that Polish defense forces would attempt to make a stand or a defense, at least initially, around the area just to the west of the Bug River, or generally the banks of the Bug River. Moving on out of that, we have also been able to hear in further news around the area of the border that it appears that searches are still ongoing for some of the missing drones, according to the Polish Ministry of Defense. The search for objects that violated Polish airspace on the night of September 9th to 10th of 2025 is still ongoing. The relevant services and the Polish army are involved in the operations. We appeal for the exercise of particular caution. In the event of noticing unknown objects or their fragments, we ask you to absolutely not approach, touch, or move the objects found. Among them, there may also be neutralizing agents used of remnants thereof. They may pose a real threat to health and life. Generally, they're saying there may be a bomb on board these drones. Don't touch them, it could blow up. Every such situation should be reported immediately to an emergency number, 112. That's the Polish version of 911, or the nearest police unit. Thanks for your vigilance, and services will be able to quickly and effectively secure the area. We also are continuing to understand that the Polish government is getting greater assistance from Ukraine in dealing with these types of drone incursions or the threat of future incursions. According to Zelensky, he actually met with the Polish Foreign Minister Radoslaw Sikorski just today. They discussed the attack of Russian drones on Poland, and Ukraine has also stated that they're ready to share their experience and assist with the training of Polish military personnel. It's actually come full circle, folks. Earlier in the war, the West was training Ukraine on how to fight a modern war. Now the Ukrainians are training the West on how to fight a modern war with drones. It's a mutual sort of a system at this point. But nevertheless, the Ukrainians and the Poles also discussed pressure on the Russians, joint defense production, and Ukraine's future EU membership. It's very important to open the first negotiation clusters for Ukraine and Moldova with the support of all 27 votes. We also spoke about the SAFE program and possibility of using the funds to produce interceptor drones. So it does appear that the Ukrainians are not only appreciative of Western support, but they are returning it tenfold by actually offering their real-time war expertise and helping Poland and the Baltic states to be able to defend themselves against possible future Russian drone incursions in the outbreak of a major war. We've also been able to hear that NATO will be conducting a large-scale Baltic naval exercise as Nordic countries and the United Kingdom will be conducting a large-scale exercise in the Baltic, including several dozen ships. From what we understand, some of these may be as large as frigates and destroyers that are being provided by any of these navies, and it does appear that it is a fairly significant naval exercise, if any, even more significant than that of Operation Sentry, which was conducted in the Baltic Sea, which comprised of about a little bit less than 10 ships. This one apparently will be conducted with dozens of vessels, most likely of smaller classes, considering the navies that will be involved, but the United Kingdom can field destroyers and frigates, and is one of the few navies outside of the Dutch that would be able to do such a thing inside of that exercise. Outside of that, the Russian Federation has also directly threatened Denmark today for their continued support of Ukraine, as the Russians have threatened Denmark with military measures for producing fuel for Ukrainian missiles. In short, the Russians are threatening war with the Danes if they do not stop providing any type of solid missile fuel to the state of Ukraine. The Danes, of course, have ignored this threat altogether, as they should, and have moved on with making sure that if the Russians attack them, they would be in a good position, as Denmark has chosen the SAMP-T system over the U.S. Patriot air defense system in a record $9.1 billion deal, citing cost and delivery delays. The country will buy the Franco-Italian designed and produced SAMP-T long-range missile systems and one more medium-range system from Norway, Germany, or France. A medium-range system could be just about any. There's a gazillion of them actually inside of the NATO alliance, but nevertheless, Nevertheless, it does appear that Denmark is continuing to prepare its own air defense in the advent of the outbreak of war, which at this point, it's incredibly close to happening, at least right now. Outside of that, speaking of war, or the outbreak of war, the war in Ukraine has been going on for 1,297 days as of today, and we have been able to see that the Ukrainians have landed even more significant hits on the Russian Federation inside of their territory. We were able to hear that the Smolensk nuclear power plant may have possibly been hit by a Ukrainian drone or fallen debris, as the Russians, or Rosatom, reported that several windows in an auxiliary building were shattered, but the attack did not affect the plant's operational safety. The Smolensk nuclear power plant is just outside of the city of Smolensk, hence the name, but it does not appear that this attack may have been directly trying to hit the power plant. It may have actually been a situation where a drone was shot down and just fell onto the area, or a drone was affected with electronic warfare interference and then ended up slamming into the area and exploding nearby. We have not seen in the past the Ukrainians go out of their way to deliberately attack a nuclear power plant, unlike the Russians, so we generally give deference to the Ukrainians in these attacks in stating that they may not have been attempting to target the power plant, but we will wait for further information and corroboration to say anything with clear certainty. We were assuming the best intentions from Ukraine, that they were not wanting to hit a nuclear power plant, but once again, that is with a lack of information. The only thing we know is that one hit near it, and that was about it. Outside of that, and near the area of Ivanovo, we have also been able to hear of a strike on a Russian fuel facility within the area of Vitorovo, which is just to the northeast of the city of Ivanovo. And y'all can actually see that in this clip right here. You see the Ukrainian drone coming on in. It's actually a Liudi, and it slammed directly into the facility, knocking it down out.
Сейчас я отправлю, кому там надо.
We also were able to hear, outside of these attacks, that way north, literally just a couple of dozen miles away from the Finnish border, Ukrainian drones were able to land their most successful hit of the night, and that actually takes us to the area of the city of Primorsk. Primorsk is a fairly important city for the Russian Federation, and its ability to be able to export its fuel products abroad, and we were able to hear that the city of Primorsk, and specifically its fueling stations, have been hit. According to what we've been able to hear in the Leningrad region, drones attacked the largest Russian oil port, Primorsk, in the Baltic Sea at night. I also want to make it a little bit clear that while this is a somewhat more significant port for the Russian Federation, the port of Ust-Luga is also as significant, if not larger, in its abilities, which is on the southern side of the Gulf of Finland. To really quickly show y'all, here's the port of Ust-Luga down here, and this is the port of Primorsk here up to the area of the north, just to the south of the town of Primorsk. Nevertheless, it does appear that the Ukrainians were able to hit it successfully, and as a result of the attack, a fire broke out on one of the ships, and there was also a fire at the pumping station in the port. In total, the Russians claimed that they shot down 221 Ukrainian drones in 13 regions overnight. We also have been able to hear, outside of that, the actual video and picture evidence of the attack itself and the kind of damage that was posed. We can actually see the smoke rising from one of the first hits. This was a picture taken from the town of Primorsk looking south. We also were able to hear them right here.
Блять, только хотел снять видео. Где это пиздец происходит? Вон они, блядь, засранцы летят ко мне. Не-не-не-не-не, сюда нельзя.
In the next clip, you can also hear another attack occurring near to the area of Primorsk. And in this last clip, you can also see someone else documenting the attack at the Primorsk fueling stations. You can actually hear the drone flying in. It does appear that this is one of the most damaging attacks outside of the Ukrainian attacks on the port of Ust-Luga that has happened around the area of the Leningrad Oblast, at least within the past few months. We are also expecting that this will continue to hamper and cause even further issues with the Russian Federation's ability to export their oil and petroleum products and natural gas outside of the country and throughout the rest of the world at large, which produces a great deal of money for them. Also, we have been able to hear, outside of that information and news coming out of Europe, that it does appear that the United States of America is pretty much running out of patience with the Russian Federation, as we have been able to hear that the president today has stated that his patience has run out with Putin, and it does appear that the president of the United States may be coming around to the idea that the Russian Federation is not a nation to be trusted, neither are its leaders, in their honesty or earnest to actually bring an end to the conflict that we've been seeing going on for nearly 4 years at this point, and nearly moving on into its 5th year. We've also been able to see that the United States of America is continuously conducting reconnaissance against Venezuela, as we were able to see a KC-135 in-air fuel tanker, as well as a P-8 Poseidon, both conducting operations within the Eastern Caribbean just off of the coast of Venezuela, most likely trying to conduct reconnaissance against the country. But nevertheless, that is all of the major news that we have for today. I thank you all so much once again for watching, and if y'all have enjoyed, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and support us on Patreon. Link in the description below if you would like to. We have to give a massive shout out to all the folks who currently are supporting us on Patreon, because for about the cost of a cup of coffee every single month, about $5 a month, you can actually help us to make this channel possible and continue to put out news and video and picture evidence like we do each and every day. I have to give a massive thanks to the folks who support the channel, and I get to give a huge thanks to all of y'all for watching. Please make sure to subscribe and hit that like button, and we will see you all in the next one.